Mark Donica here at RTX 2017, here with Josh Flanagan, the director, showrunner or director?
Showrunner, okay. But also director.
Also director for Day 5. 10 Little Roosters, 11 Little Roosters, Colonel Cockface from 11 Little Roosters, and generally when they need a bearded person. Or
a shirtless person.
Or a shirtless person, any combination of that.
Right, yep.
We are lucky to see your beauteous visage. So going back to starting your directorial side, how did that all come to be? Like, when was it, hey, I've got these projects that I want to do, or is it, you're the right guy for the job?
Well, at Rooster Teeth, it was always an interesting thing. I actually got hired on Rooster Teeth as an editor initially, and I was doing editing gigs to pay the bills while I was writing scripts at night and doing all these things. So my forte was much more in writing and directing, but I kind of got in with editing through Chris Demirs, who I've known since college, and he'd been there a few years. But then pretty soon after that, I wrote the Day 5 short. I wrote on Laser Team, and just kind of trickled my way into directing stuff, and I think the first big project I really got greenlit was 10 Little Roosters, which I just pitched. They were basically like, I'd finished up all the projects I was contracted for, and they were like, give us a reason to keep you here. And I was like, well, I have this. And they were like, great. And so 10 Little Roosters was born.
Were you a fan of the book, the original story?
Yeah, I was. I love murder mysteries. They're just, they're also really hard to write because murder mysteries typically depend on a twist, and it's hard to sit down and be like, think of a really good twist right now, yeah, I just thought it would be fun. I was looking at what resources we had. We had obviously the cast, and we had this building, and it was like, what could I make for really cheap that I think's interesting? And but also I love interactive stuff. I used to want to do video games, and I think the Little Rooster series with their level of interactivity is me getting back to that in a lot of ways. And also I just think there's a lot of untapped potential for web series in general as its own medium. Like so far it's been a lot of like shorter versions of TV shows, and I think the web, like, it has, like, you can instantly rewatch things, you're instantly connected to online, so you can research or follow links or all these things, and I think there's this untapped potential for web series to be their own medium that hasn't really been done. So
no, you're super breaking new ground. The huge step up from season 1 to season 2 of Little Roosters. Like I was trying to follow along every week for the first one, and then once it got to second, it was like, and I started seeing all the clues of there's a website hidden in this little text on this little thing. It's like, well, have fun, everybody. I'm just gonna enjoy the show. Who was your favorite person to write, or who was your favorite character to bring to life in 11 Little Roosters? There's so many just crazy people.
I think maybe Chris's character, Christoph Weiss, whose spoiler is just Chris Demirs, it turns out later on.
Absolutely amazing. Like I married into a Swedish family. Sound nothing like that. Right. Like entire. So was it just figure out a silly voice and we'll call you Swedish, or like?
Yeah, well, I had the twist before I knew what the character was. Okay. I was like, we're gonna have this character. You're gonna be Swedish. You're gonna be in all white, and like because it's gonna be Christoph Weiss. It's gonna be Christoph the White. Like, and when it comes around that you've come back and lost your memory, and it's yet another Lord of the Rings death.
So amazing.
Yeah, so then I kind of reverse engineered it, and we didn't even bother to look it up. I was like, I don't know what Swedish people talk like, I don't know, and it'll make sense at the end when you realize everything he does is bad because he's not Swedish. I think Chris tried to do some work, but it's a hard language to pronounce. Like there's weird R's and things, and yeah. So it was cool. It was fun to see. Chris took it and ran with it, and I think it turned out pretty cool.
And the direct cut of the falling to the just immediate splat.
Yeah.
So much by surprise. What was there a clue, or what was the hint that took the longest for people to find?
Oh man!
Out of the one out of the 2 or 3 that were amongst the season.
There's 5 in every episode, so there's 7. There's 30. Thanks, because my math. 7 times 5 is 35, right? Sure. There's 35 clues to find throughout the season. Man, there were some that I thought would be. The ones that I thought would be easy weren't always, like I thought, or hard. Like there's a clue in episode 1 where Matt's character, the big cock, is wearing an eye patch, and it keeps flipping sides, and it's played off as like an airplane style gag. Like every time it cuts by, sometimes he got 2 and sometimes he has none. But there's an eye chart earlier in the episode, and if you correlate the first 7 edits of where his eye patch goes with the eye chart, it'll tell you a code, and that's one of the clues. I thought that was going to be hard. People solved it really fast, and then there would be other things, like there was a clue in the titles themselves. When the 11 Little Roosters title is popping up, there's like numbers that pop up just for a split second. If you write them out in order, then that's a clue. That one took way longer than the eye patch one, which I thought was weird, because one was obviously something like some kind of code. It was a mix. Yeah.
But is there? I mean, I guess we've already spoiled for a couple of things.
Yeah.
I know you're focusing on Day 5 right now. We'll talk about that in a second. But where do you want to see the Little Roosters franchise go moving on? Does it turn into a turn-based PC game? Does it turn into like an actual murder mystery, like old school, like point and click adventure?
I don't know, but I will say I always try and do something new, like with it. You know, 10 Little Roosters was it's very Agatha Christie. It had a very specific sort of interactive mechanism to it, picking the weapons and all these things, and then also kind of an open-endedness at the end of every episode. Like, you didn't know for sure until the next week that you were right or wrong. Yeah. 11 Little Roosters played with more of kind of a gamification of that, where it was like, I tell you exactly what you're looking for. How to find it is different every time, but if you find all these things, you can get to the exact answer every week. Yeah. So when we do the next iteration, whatever that is, I'm gonna find something different. I don't know what it is.
Interpretive dance.
Yeah, it might be. I had played with a version that that was a live broadcast that was a telenovela that I thought would be really fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The Mexico's Revenge.
Yeah.
Why not?
Bernardo could just come back as himself, and you know.
What was your favorite death from 10 or 11?
I think Chris's death in both is my favorite, because they're so stupid. I actually when I wrote the death for Chris in 11 Little Roosters, initially I'd only intended for him to fall off the catwalk and it'd be that, and then I was like, God, it would be so amazing if when the whole scene is done you think it's over and then suddenly the camera drops down and then we recreate the Gandalf falling scene from Two Towers. And I submitted that, and I was like, to my producer, I was like, I have no idea if we can do this or not, but I think it's hilarious, and if we can, we should make it happen. And then they did. We were able to squeeze it in, and I think it's like one of the funniest bits of the show. So. And
you've kind of ruined rewatching Lord of the Rings for me, because like Boromir's going down, starting to get shot, and all that, and I just think of, you fucking nerd, like all that stuff.
It's shot for shot too.
I know.
Yeah,
nuts.
Almost. They both skew off at the end, but the first couple shots of the Gandalf death and the fall, and then the first 8 shots or something of Boromir are identical. Like when it slows down, when it speeds up, it's shot for shot. Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
So if by some hook or crook, Chris ends up surviving a head explosion, just a huge body purification. Yeah. What other Lord of the Rings death would you want to put him through, or was there another one that you had in mind, or was it always Boromir and Gandalf?
No, it was always Boromir and Gandalf. I mean, I didn't, when I finished 10 Little Roosters, I didn't know exactly then that we were going to do 11 and that it was going to be the Gandalf. But then as soon as it started, I was like, oh, this is obvious. Man, I feel like we thought of his potential death at some point, and now I'm forgetting. I'll just keep it secret that way. Fine. Yeah. Keep it safe. Yep. Yeah. Jinx.
Fucking nerds. I love it. All right, so switching gears to Day 5. Yeah. It's blown everybody out of the water. It's one of those things where I'm sure the folks who are here at RTX shooting the short were just chomping at the bit. And once we got the first look, it's a new pillar of achievement for Rooster Teeth Productions.
Thank you.
Of course, and like, but from this, we've gotten a fun friendship between you and Walker Satterwhite. Now, to tell us a little bit about how that friendship came together. Because he just seems to be a little shit, and I love him.
He's great. He's a little shit, but yeah. He's good. We finding kid actors is tough. The ones he's out from, he kind of straddles Houston and LA, but I mean a lot of the kid actors, even like the somewhat better ones, they learn this kind of Disney Channel style of acting. So it was hard to find a kid who could like do this comedy and drop F-bombs and do these things and not be irritating, because I think there's I think kids usually go one way or the other. There's very few neutral kids. You either like hate a kid on screen, like everyone hates the Walking Dead kid or whatever, and then, or they're awesome. And so just finding him was well, he stood out, I should say. Like, it wasn't, we didn't have to go super far, but we did a lot of auditions, and he was clearly at the top. So we actually had him cast before we had Jesse C. Boyd cast. And so we had a couple actors in the running. So for Jake, we had Walker do chemistry reads with all of them to see which ones of them clicked.
Excellent.
Yeah, and him and Jesse were just like perfect. But yeah, Walker, he's super funny. He was on stage with us Thursday night for the Q&A, and it's like, if you're 14 and you can make an entire audience laugh, like, 1,400 people laugh, like, I think there's some talent there. Yeah. But yeah, we just give each other shit all the time. He always threatens me, like he's gonna call and say I touched him, or something inappropriate. I'm like, because his dad is like the chief of police or something, and but then I keep telling him I'm gonna marry his aunt because I really just want to be his uncle. So I'm always asking what she's up to. So Shannon, if you're out there, I'm waiting on that call.
Misconnection. So was the plan always to bring in mostly outside Rooster Teeth talent to make it stand apart, or was it initially, were there a lot of auditions internally? No,
we do hold auditions internally each season. We've done it, but no, I think there's an understanding that even inside that Rooster Teeth aren't dramatic actors, and these are roles that we needed people who professionally trained and a little more seasoned, and so we knew right off the bat we were going to go cast outside. But at the same time, we are always looking for places to put in Rooster Teeth people, or where we think it makes sense, and that in and of itself is a challenge, because you're making something that's a broader entertainment, but also like we're aware that the Rooster Teeth audience specifically is watching this, and so we try and find roles for the personalities that make sense within the story and that aren't distracting.
Yeah.
Because it would be very easy to be very easy. Let me phrase that. To have, let's say, like, oh, there's some bodies in the background and one of them is Bernie Burns. It's like, for the audience, it's going to pull you out immediately. Sure. Like, what should be a somber, dramatic moment is going to be like, oh, haha, there's Bernie, he's dead. And you're like, oh, yeah.
I like the way you played with that expectation in season 1 with Gavin, because it was a moment of, oh shit, it's Gavin. Wait.
Yeah. I thought that was actually it was Chris that cast Gavin in that role. He was like, I think Gavin would be great for this, and yeah, good little pieces. Matt as Walker Sam's dad. Aaron cast himself as his naked ass in his own episode. So yeah, he's the new Tommy Wiseau.
Thank you for getting that in my head again. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So we've got season 2 debuting in August.
Yes.
And season 1 is available as first and on iTunes still, right?
It's not on iTunes. Right now, it's just first. You can watch the pilot for free on roosterteeth.com or on YouTube, actually, as well.
And I know at the premiere you talked a little bit about home release, but is there any more consideration for digital release, or is that something that we can talk about?
It's coming.
Okay.
It won't come before season 2 is done, and I think people will be surprised at the width of that distribution when it happens, but it's still a little ways off.
Okay. Is when going into the project, did you put out a timeline for the whole series, or was it let's go season by season, see what happens, and eventually get to an endpoint?
Yeah, we have an end game, and the kind of broad strokes we need to hit. We sort of have a range of seasons. Like it could be, I don't want to say just yet. We'll probably confirm that next year at some point, exactly how many seasons there'll be. But at this point, it could be this, but then depending what those are, it depends, what story we tell each season. And at the same time, we try hard to, especially I think you'll see with season 2, is to find these really good seasonal stories. I think if you look at season 1, that was more of our introduction to the world. It's like, here's this world, here are the rules, here are the characters.
Now you can play.
Exactly. And then like maybe second half of season 1, you kind of start to get some plot pieces. Season 2 is very plot heavy. Did you watch the premiere?
Yes. Yeah, we were there.
So so if you watch the premiere, you know exactly what season 2 is about. You know what the goal is, you know what they want, and that pays off in really big and surprising ways by the end of the season. So we have a in-game plan, but we're trying to look at seasonally too what's interesting and how many of those seasonal stories we want to tell to add up to that end.
It was amazing being in the theater for that, and how well the sound carried of all of the jaws hitting the floor when certain stuff was happening was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I'd forgotten how many jokes are in the first episode too.
Yeah.
And I think generally season 2 is funnier. We found just some. I mean, again, it's like you're coming in with established characters, so now you can have more fun. You don't spend less time developing, backstories, and more time just letting them be who they are and play in the world. And then we found some interesting ways, which aren't in that episode, but there's some stuff later where, for example, in season 1 we had the incubus Dave, who uses pain to stay awake, and he was much more a horror figure. Season 2 has a really crazy spin on that we haven't met yet. They're not in episode 1. It's a new way to stay awake, but it creates these antagonists that are both really scary but also really funny, and they oscillate really fast. And so even in the horror elements, I think we found new ways to kind of add humor to it. So there's a new kind of dark humor level, I think, to season 2.
Plenty of dark humor in here. Speaking of humor, I think one of the people that has been a standout in live action productions lately, especially in 11 Little Roosters, and when you say comedy, first name that popped into my head, are you going to be getting any Zach Anner in day 5?
He's not in season 2. I can say that. He's busy. He got all fancy, and he's a writer on Speechless for NBC. Is it? I think. Yeah. He's over there as a writer now. So he's too busy for me.
He's too Hollywood.
Yeah, too Hollywood. I hope so. It'd be funny to get him in there at some point. So
and just as many different perspectives about the world would help just build it even further, which you've already done an amazing job doing. Were you written specifically for the milkman part in season 1, or was that just I could do that sort of a thing?
No, it was it wasn't written for me, but I didn't volunteer. It was Chris was like, you should play this role. Like, this would be great, cameo. And I was like, okay, cool. And maybe Mark the Milkman makes a return. I don't know. But it was funny actually, because Chris wrote that dialogue about like milk and nipples and straws, and he was like, is this too dumb for this show? And I was like, no, it's perfect, great. Yeah, so
it's a nice break right before a lot of silly craziness happens.
Yeah.
This is probably spoiler territory just while we're talking about it. Are we ever going to see the hospital again?
Maybe.
Okay, that's plenty answer enough.
It's not a no. Maybe. Could be a maybe. Yeah, there might be things. Yeah.
What's been your favorite thing stepping into this role as a showrunner and being able to tell this new unique story?
Just being able to try something really ambitious and something that I feel passionate about. I think it's a cool hook. I think it's a cool story. I think we've got good characters. And I think it's been I don't know, just to play in something that has such great scope, and to try and bring something that on a Rooster Teeth end, at least, I think it's cool that, and I've heard this a lot at RTX, that like this is sort of a gateway show for a lot of people, like their parents or their friends who aren't necessarily Rooster Teeth fans. This is sort of like a great show that they can watch and kind of bring their family into their interests, which I think is cool.
Yeah, a lot more families this year.
Yeah.
So I know you're super busy. You're stuck in post right now for quote stuck, excuse me. But do you get a chance to relax? Do you get a chance to have any free time and enjoy yourself? For goodness sake, being stuck in this dark world.
Not lately, but at some point. We got a couple more weeks left on the show, but then I'm always working on something, right? So even 11 Little Roosters is a good example. We wrote on day 5, season 2 in the fall for 2 to 3 months. Immediately at the end of that, I was straddling writing 11 Little Roosters, and immediately came off that, directed 11 Little Roosters, and was going through posts on 11 Little Roosters while we were in pre-production on day 5, season 2, and then immediately rolled into that. And right now, Chris and Aaron and I are working on a really big project that we haven't announced yet. As I finish this post, so it's always like one and then the other. So I do it to myself, but I love what I do. So it's hard. I'll find a vacation at some point. So
well, you deserve it. Last question: What's been your favorite thing at RTX, and is there something that you can tease the audience with in terms of like as if you need a reason to tune in day 5. If people haven't watched day 5 season 1, why should they tune in now before season 2 starts?
Gotcha. Okay. RTX. I love meeting fans. It's really cool to get their impressions of stuff and see what they're passionate about, and see what it kind of feels like on a ground level to be an audience, because I can get lost in the details. And every time I watch an episode of my show, the flaws stick out or the potential sticks out. I always see like what something could have been. For it takes a little while till it solidifies into just what it is. The final edit of it. And like getting to watch episode 1 with an audience Thursday night was, I think, that moment for me. It was like, this is episode 1. This is what it is. And the audience seemed to really enjoy it. So that felt great. And then if you haven't watched day 5, I think it's a really cool, unique show. And we're in an area where apocalyptic lore is very oversaturated. You have a lot of, The Walking Dead and lots of films, deal with it. And I think even amongst that, I'd like to think that Day 5 really stands out as kind of its own thing. It's a really interesting mix of elements from things like Walking Dead, but also a lot of mystery like Lost and some moment-to-moment thrills, like 24, or even actually one of the movies we looked at when writing it was Crank. Starring Jason Statham.
I mean, how can you not? It's a way to stay alive.
So if you see in the credits, it says based on Crank by Jason Statham. But no, I mean, that moment-to-moment urgency. It's just, and like you're talking about, I mean, it oscillates really fascinating between, things like the Mark the Milkman comedy dialogue, and then really dramatic, really serious, really scary moments. So you're playing in a world where, because there's delirium, people can be crazy, and it feels natural to the world, which just opens up all kinds of writing possibilities for characters and scenarios I just don't think you see on other shows.
And by the end of season 1, we see Ellis just quickly starting to lose it, having conversations with people that aren't there, and that escalates even further in season 2.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also just love the use of silence, and it's everything is super urgent, but can we just get a break for fuck's sake? All right, now let's go to the next thing that needs us to stay alive.
Yes.
Yeah. Fun question, last question. How would you keep yourself awake in the Day 5 apocalypse?
Oh, God. I guess I'll just keep working on projects, which is what I already do. So I'll just keep making more shows, and then I'll be fine.
Yeah,
so
you haven't slept in weeks, right?
No, I'm good to go. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Josh. Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.
Cool.